Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi everybody, I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. It is summer, Pete, but we get about, 20 of these days every year.
Yeah, well.
But I think we probably only get about 10 these days. I think the summers are getting milder. But it's a hot, really hot day today. Wherever you are, I hope it's a great day. Thank you for joining us. We're about a week away from Australia Day, and still there are far too many companies and organisations, including the Australian Open. You know, they incorporate the name Australian in their great tennis spectacular, but they don't want to celebrate Australia Day. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. I say if they boycott the day, let's boycott them and their products. And Pete, this note that you brought down here,
Yes.
this was posted, was it, on Facebook?
Yes, it was. That was replying to a post about Australia Day,
Yeah.
and she's a part Aboriginal woman, and she absolutely supports it.
Yeah, I have both Indigenous and English blood in me. I cannot change the past or history. I cannot deny neither, as that would be denying a part of me. I am proud to call Australia home and will be cracking a beer, firing up the barbecue, out amongst nature somewhere, and just soaking it all in.
And 1.9 thousand people replied to her comment.
Yeah. I'm quite sure public opinion is well and truly behind Australia Day on the 26th, because after all, it is the 26th of January, maybe a nod to 1788, but it was 1948 that the act was passed that made us a nation. Up until 1948, 26th of January, we had British passports. We were tied to Britain. We're not tied to Britain. And that's the truth, and that's why we celebrate it on the 26th of January. It's a nod and a salute to 1948, not 1788, so for God's sake. We're recording this session of the Court of Public Opinion on Monday, a hot Monday, posted on Facebook, thanks to Pete, for viewing on Tuesday. It'll be posted 9 o'clock in the morning. The day that so many people have been looking forward to, while others have been dreading, the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump. What do you think, Pete? You in favour?
I like some of his policies.
Yes.
But I do not like the man at all.
Well, I think he's a bull in a china shop. But he's going to drain the swamp and he's going to turn the place upside down. So, ladies and gentlemen, this day, as you look at this posting on Facebook, or maybe catch up with it as a podcast somewhere with just the audio, let the fun begin. Oh boy. I saw something interesting the other day. I keep an eye out for things that I find interesting, in the hope that you will find them interesting. It's a quote. Nothing in life is to be feared, just understood. Madame Curie, Nobel Prize winner, who in 1898, I think it was, discovered radium. She, with her husband, coined the phrase, I think his name was Pierre, coined the phrase radioactivity. They made it up. X-rays, and eventually opening the door to nuclear medicine. Turning our back on nuclear power would be about as stupid as turning our back on nuclear medicine. Think about that quote for a minute. Nothing in life, what is it? Nothing in life is to be feared, just understood. It's amazing to me that Labor can close the door to nuclear power without debate, without discussion, closed mind, no thought, freedom of thought. It's mindless, thoughtless, stupid, not worthy of a political party seeking power. But just leaving the nuclear thing to one side, I'm fond of asking the question, what is the problem we are trying to fix? Why are we retiring our coal-fired power assets in the first place? Both parties seem to agree. But why? At what cost? And to what benefit? I was looking at a nearly built, nearly completed coal-fired power station in Sichuan, China. It's their newest. Absolutely enormous. And they build about 1 or 2 of these a month in China. China's CO2 output now eclipses that of the entire developed world combined. That's every country on the face of the planet. Which of course renders all of the sacrifices that we are being forced to make and all of the expenses that we are being forced to bear useless. The pursuit of net zero emissions in Australia, utterly pointless, but enormously expensive. And the real cost of which, of course, is incalculable. We have a government who is seeking a new mandate. They want to be re-elected. Oh, well, God, who else is going to give them a job? They know all of this which I have just said. They know it. But they don't give us stuff. If they do get re-elected, with the same policy of ridiculously high electricity prices that are reflected in everything we buy, every place we go, everything we do, it's called the cost of living. It's not Labor who is stupid. It's us. They just want to pursue their global ideological belief that Australia can change the world. And we can't. But we can change the government. But I tell you, the Libs had better make it clear that they do not adhere to the same net zero nonsense themselves. Dr. Cathy Foley, the just retired chief scientist in Australia, was being interviewed recently on climate change, something out of Europe. It was a study that they'd just completed. She was saying, last year was the hottest year in the history of the world. Really? Pretty mild here in South Australia. As I said at the head of the show, it's usually about 20 days over 38 or 41 or something like that. It's now back to about 10. You know, not one journalist asked a question. I'm sorry, ma'am, tell us how you know this. The hottest year in the history of the world? How? when reliable records have only been kept since 1912. And now the latest scare, we are now putting out twice the CO2 that we used to. Well, who's we? That we used to. Twice what? That's pretty vague. Since when and how do you know? Perfectly simple questions. Again, these experts are never questioned. It seems you can make the wildest claims or statements about climate change, doom and gloom of course, and get away with it. Nonsense can then get to be reported as fact. God help us. Perhaps the Arctic ice core that I have mentioned in the past, that was retrieved last week. This is the Arctic. It was Greenland where they put this huge ice core drill down. Maybe this is going to shed some real light on climate change. Previous cores have gone back 300,000 years. This one has gone back, or should I say down, 1 million years. And it's out there, lined up on benches. You know, kilometres of it to be analysed and hopefully to be accurately reported upon. I wonder how these people will try to bury the findings. Because I really believe that these cores will show the amazing and natural way that our climate, environment and planet has changed, adapted and always will. I admit, of course, that man and woman has had an impact, an effect, probably not a good one, no, certainly not a good one, but nothing that the world can't and hasn't handled. The real issue is not climate, it's population. Too many people. And the announcement on the weekend that Australia will, over the next 5 Antarctic summers, drill similar ice cores, which is all well and good, but I believe that some scientists think that they can interpret or reinterpret or misinterpret these ice cores to confirm their climate prejudices and predictions. And where is the media to question them on that? A lot of them are looking to justify and continue this nonsense. Please watch closely. Don't let them destroy our standard of living and our quality of life. And the story that you might have seen over Christmas in England, Somerset, I think it was. I've seen pictures of the place and I thought, well, what a lovely looking place that is. Somerset, a clay pan, dinosaur footprints were discovered, 12 million years old. Very good, interesting, great story. The scientists said, back then, this part of England was a tropical rainforest. England? Wow. You would have thought the journalist doing the story would have asked a few questions about that. A tropical rainforest here. Wow. Where did it go? Well, things change. What did man have to do with this 12 million years ago? Very little. But change is always with us. But back then, we didn't have the ABC. And their interpretation of... Oh, it's a funny old world, isn't it? God. What else? The 31st, I think it is, 31st month for the worst ramping in South Australia's history. But the Ambulance Union was rewarded on the weekend with the opening of yet another multi-million-dollar ambulance station for their remarkable support at the last election. Listen, fellas, if it was bad back then, which got you really mobilised, why are you so quiet now? So, this is great. They can get you to the hospital faster so that you can sit on the forecourt for a week in the back of an ambulance. Terrific. Someone, I'm not saying who, someone needs a kick in the bum. Now this is an interesting one. Credit cards and debit cards. You got a credit card, Pete?
No, I've got a debit card though.
Yeah, that makes sense. You charge up your debit card and you know that the money's there and you're not running up a thing, which I always advise myself regularly. Pay it off at the end of the month. Anyway, credit cards and debit cards are more costly than we think. Firstly, there's the surcharge and then there's the merchant fee. Now, it depends on who you talk to. The restaurateur says, I have to charge a surcharge when people use a card because the banks charge a merchant fee for the technology that allows you to swipe your card. Why? Help me with this. Why isn't this just a part of the merchant's overheads? Just another part of the cost of doing business, like staff and rent and electricity and insurance and all the rest. It's only a few cents, I know. But why pass it on? Why pass it on and none of the other costs in the form of a surcharge? 1.5% on top of, but today it adds up. Those surcharges cost more than $4 billion a year to the customers. That's a lot to pay for the convenience. And on the other side, the banks are charging the merchants over $6 billion a year for the swiping machine. Pete, what do you call that thing? Is it what's it called? An FPOS?
Well, I guess so, yeah. That's the process, yeah.
The
card readers, I think.
The card readers. Well, yeah. It would probably cost the merchant more to deal with cash. Now, the Commonwealth Bank has asked the RBA to ban all surcharges on credit and debit cards. But no word on whether the banks will go on charging the merchant. Complicating the issue further, retailers and airlines say that if they can't charge the surcharge, the customers are going to have to pay more for whatever. And what about the points and the frequent flyers and the flybys? I don't know how any of that's going to work. I try not to get involved or think about it. But maybe you can call me when we get back on the 7th. I don't want to make this all about South Australia, but this stuff applies probably to every city in the country, if not the world. The latest crime statistics are truly frightening. Truly frightening. These are figures for the 10 to 17-year-olds. Gone from under 9,000 last year to over 20,000 this year. 10 to 17-year-olds. And published in The Age yesterday, that was Monday, an unbelievable 90 students a day are suspended from school for bad behaviour. We have a government who, like the ramping disaster, say nothing to see here, and a media who will not pursue the subject. As I said to you last week, a simple piece of legislation that makes parents liable for the behaviour of their children, legally and financially responsible. My friend in the upper house, the Honourable Frank Pengello, might get onto that. I mean, I think it would solve many of the problems. Let me know what you think. JeremyCordeaux.com every Friday morning from the 7th of February, live streaming from around the dining room table. 0491 65 68 60. It's good to see Border Force reinforcing national security, particularly in Western Australia, which seems to be particularly vulnerable. The waters off the far northern coast of Western Australia. An unprecedented increase in foreign boat arrivals. 170 illegal arrivals in just the last 6 months. It's only when you see this neck of the woods, really, that you realise how big this country really is and how difficult, perhaps impossible, it is to protect our borders. But it is vital that we do. We have to try. We need a better, perhaps permanent naval presence. This is where we maybe can have a visible presence. Surely we can use the waters to conduct our operations, naval exercises. We can put drones up there, maybe satellite surveillance. 170 illegal boats, many from Indonesia. We find the boats but not the people. Now remember this salutary lesson. Just ask an Aboriginal. If you can't control your borders, you will lose your country. I mean, you can have all the submarines in the world, but, you know, we should be looking at the pointy end of all of this. The logging of native forests is back in the news. The independent authority, whose job it is to oversee the logging industry, made an amazing announcement, knowing that logging native public forests has been banned in Western Australia, Victoria, now New South Wales looks like following. But listen to this. The regulatory authority has announced, these are the guys in charge, they've announced that the industry is totally in the red, bankrupt. It makes no money. In fact, it costs the taxpayer a fortune. Number one, it makes no sense to be cutting down trees, which are vital to the environment. They're an important carbon sink and producer of clean, oxygen-invigorated air. This logging industry, long controversial, is losing money hand over fist. It's controversial, yes. It destroys native habitat, exacerbates global warming, and we are paying for the privilege to do all this damage. It should be banned immediately. It has no value and no logic. Please, write your Member of Parliament or call somebody. Call your local talk show. First ever autistic strategy. Gee, I had to scratch my head and think about that. Autistic strategy. $47 million the South Australian government is giving to, I quote, make a difference.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
I'm sorry, I don't get it. I heard some self-proclaimed autistic people in the news when this story broke saying, we are normal people, just a bit different. Great quote. Wonderful. We are all, or should be, a bit different. That's what makes us interesting. Autistic, genius, dyslexic, savant syndrome. Amazing people. We all have strengths and weaknesses. We overcome our disabilities and disadvantages, or that's the way it should be. That's what we should be encouraged to do. That's what makes us unique, resourceful. Why does this government want to create a difference? Autistic people can be strangely gifted. The only thing we need is to have a society which sees us all as equal. We are all special. Black, white, gifted, ordinary, pedestrian, whatever. Recognise and celebrate any difference. Now, I tell you what, that does not cost $47 million of taxpayers' money. It doesn't even involve money at all. Just enlightenment. Pete, you'll tell me when we get to about half an hour, because I think the tape will stop. Medicare, I was looking at some figures the other day, is in total disarray, but in denial as well. The great socialist ideal, the promise of free medical care. No one pays, it's all free. Rubbish. No one bulk bills. We all have co-payments. Why? Well, I don't understand it. There is a Medicare levy we all have to pay that was supposed to cover everything, wasn't it? Or have you forgotten? It was supposed to pay for our so-called free medical care. In fact, what it means is that we actually pay twice. Our local family GP has become a medical centre, a business hub with employees and overheads. Labor has industrialised medicine. A GP practice is now a profit centre. It's like renewables. It is, it really is. Oh, electricity, it's going to be cheaper with renewables. Lies, 60% more expensive. Explain that, Mr. Albanese. And no journalist to hold you to account. But believe me, here in the court of public opinion, we will. We can. Shut us up if you can. Stephen Conroy. You remember Stephen Conroy? And the NBN, which I understand was worked out on the back of an envelope or a table napkin on a plane from Western Australia to Canberra. Like the NDIS, probably Medicare. Not a lot of thought, logic, no concern for the cost or the benefit, no business plan. The government now wants to grow the thing, the NBN. Listen, find out what is wrong with the NBN. Don't worry about expanding it till you've got it right. The government is giving another it's not the government, it's us. We are giving another $3 billion. To do what? To achieve what? Oh, we have to look after the regions. They expect what people get in the city. You can't live in rural Australia and expect to get what people get in the larger cities. As I've often said to you, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, which is exactly why you don't let these people on the Treasury benches. They mean well, but they're incompetent. When they're in a hole, they just keep right on digging. They'll say, oh, we're just putting in another cable. I wonder if this government has noticed how fast satellite technology is moving with lightning fast connectivity in the bush. Just asking. Oh, listen, have you been to the Rising Sun, one of our sponsors? Have you been to the Rising Sun in Kensington? Beautiful food, great wine list, friendly staff, great atmosphere, lunch or dinner, and a fabulous bar, lots of character. If it's just a drink you're after, a glass of wine or something after dinner on your way home, you will love it. Make a booking. Have a talk to Grant or any of his staff. You can call 8333-0721, 8333-0721. The Rising Sun, historic Rising Sun restaurant at 60 Bridge Street at Kensington, one of our sponsors. And I'll tell you about this wonderful art gallery in Melbourne Street, North Adelaide, when next we convene the Court of Public Opinion. You know, it seems to me that we are all missing the point. Even the Americans with their TikTok dilemma. I'm sure you're across that. You're either a good guy or you're not. Perhaps a crook. Are they friend or foe? We should be able to decide that. And here's something else. We will spend $600 million, the taxpayer, you and I, on building an NRL football team in Papua New Guinea as a bribe. A condition of the agreement. So that these people who are totally dependent, I'm talking about the Papua New Guineans, totally dependent on Australian foreign aid anyway, will not allow a Chinese military presence in their country. Listen, fellas, the Chinese are here in Australia in great numbers. If that's not a problem here, why is it a problem in Papua New Guinea or the Solomon Islands? We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars giving money to South Pacific islands, buying their loyalty. The Chinese are already there. But why are we giving $190 million to the Solomons? For what? Oh, and here's a quote, if I can just get this right. It's easier to keep them out than to do something once they're here. Really? Listen, mate, if you haven't noticed, they're already here, recording eye-watering profits and success. China has just announced an amazing $1 trillion trade surplus. You know, they export more, $1 trillion more than they import. They have exported more than any other country in the history of the world in the last year. I suggest we could learn a thing or two from the Chinese. And why would they do us any harm anyway, if we're helping to make them rich? I wonder if they ever get up in the morning or stop to think. Premier Xi, President Xi ever gets down on his knees? No, I don't think they believe in God, do they? But anyway, I wonder if they ever thank Gough Whitlam and his Lima Declaration, which in 1975 wrecked our manufacturing industry to create theirs. Amazing. Look it up. Google it. Just, Google, what can you tell me about the Lima Declaration? It's only a couple of paragraphs. It will make your eyes bug out. How much time have I got, Pete?
Well, how much do you want?
Oh, just one more.
There you go.
One more. I want to do this. I want to do this because I carry all this around in my head. It gets to be a burden. This was a very interesting moment in Adelaide. I don't know if it's happened anywhere else. Possibly has. An interesting moment. Friday the 13th of December, a diplomatic soiree at the Adelaide Town Hall. The entire diplomatic corps was welcomed. This is all of the honorary consuls and consul generals, and I think in the cities you have consuls, and in other larger cities they're consul generals. But the various diplomatic missions, let me put it that way, the entire diplomatic corps was welcomed, addressed by the head of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, completely in the Ghana language, which I also find interesting because there is no written Ghana language. They had no alphabet. No Aboriginal tribe had an alphabet. But the whole thing was delivered I'm told. I wasn't there. But I am told it was delivered in the language of the Ghana people. This is a public servant, a servant of the Australian people, all Australian people. Our representative. Is this considered appropriate behaviour of a senior bureaucrat? This is not Ghana country. This is Adelaide, Australia. What the hell is going on? I hope when, perhaps not if, Peter Dutton wins the next election, there is a cleaning out of the public service, which at the moment is woke to the core. And I don't know if you agree with me, Pete, but something has got to be done.
I do definitely agree.
Let's grab my glasses and a few dates, and then I shall leave you in peace. It's the 21st of January. Happy birthday or happy wedding anniversary. It's, of course, the inauguration of the new President of the United States, President Trump, which will go down in history, I'm quite sure, one way or another, in all sorts of interesting ways. Anyway, 1921, British crime writer Agatha Christie publishes her first novel, which is called The Mysterious Affair at Styles, introducing her to be forever popular character, Hercule Poirot. What else? That was 1921. John McEnroe becomes the first ever player to be expelled from the Australian Open. Was that his, you've gotta be, what was the line, Pete?
Oh, yeah.
You've gotta be, you can't be serious.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
You can't be serious. Well, that was 1990. Well, this year's a bit different. This could be the year that a commentator is expelled from the Australian Open. One Tony Jones, who took the mickey out of the Serbian spectators. Oh dear, oh dear. I find it hard to take seriously. Sorry. 1968, the Battle of Kayshan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Kayshan, is it?
Yeah.
One of the most publicised and controversial battles of the Vietnam War begins at the Kayshan Air Base on this day in 1968. 1977, US President Jimmy Carter pardons almost all Vietnam War draft evaders. Quiet Beatle, George Harrison, he was only 22, weds British model Patty Boyd, 21. They divorced in 77, but got married on this day in 66. He was a nice man, George Harrison. Met him once. Not in the entertainment sense, up on Hamilton Island, where he had a lovely sort of compound thing. Don't know whatever happened to that. Harry Houdini escapes a police station in Amsterdam on this day in 1903. What silly cop would think to lock up Harry Houdini? You would imagine he would get out. I would think he would be hard to lock up. Handcuffs wouldn't work. Vladimir Lenin's testament is handed to the Communist Party. It calls for changes to the Soviets' governing structure and criticises Joseph Stalin, Leon Trotsky and other members. 1924, Lenin, Russian Marxist revolutionary Soviet leader, dies of a stroke at 53, 1924, same day. Peggy Lee, American singer, she did Fever. She did, oh yes, she did Is That All There Is? Which I think was from Send in the Clowns. Is That All There Is? It's the song of disillusionment. I don't like disillusionment. I'm a born optimist. I can't stand disillusionment. A songwriter, an actress, Pete Kelly's Blues, Lady and the Tramp, dies of a heart attack at 81. I had the great pleasure of talking to her. She died in 2002. I think I spoke to her in the early 90s. Rasputin, 1869, Russian monk and confidant of Russian Tsar Nicholas, was born this day in 1869. Opel manufacturers of motor cars makes their first motor car on this day in 1899. Placido Domingo, 1941, Spanish opera and Latin tenor, conductor, artistic director, born in Madrid, Spain, 1941. The USS Nautilus, the first nuclear-powered submarine launched on the Thames River, not London, but Connecticut, 1954. I think that's what you'd kind of call tried and true technology, isn't it? 1959, Cecil B. DeMille, American filmmaker, 10 Commandments, Samson and Delilah. He dies of a heart attack in 1977. No, he dies of a heart attack at the age of 77 on this day in 1959. Christian Dior, French designer, born France, 1905. The Bee Gees album, Saturday Night Fever, goes to #1 for 24 weeks in the United States of America on this day in 1978. And it would have been, golly, 78. It would have been less than 15 years before that as a door-to-door photographer at Coogee in Sydney, I had the Bee Gees, who had just appeared on Bandstand with Brian Henderson. Their mother said, yes, I'd love some pictures of the kids. I had no idea who they were, but I recognised them because I used to watch Bandstand. Oh gee, I remember that. Lovely family. And in 15 years, they were household names, world stars. Amazing what a few years can do. Oh, and I'll leave you with what? Oh dear. Lorena Bobbitt, found temporarily insane when she was found guilty of having cut off her husband's penis. On this day she was found insane, or temporarily insane. She didn't cut off the penis on this day, but she was... Anyway, you get my drift. But the amazing thing was that apparently he found it by the roadside or something, and then went on to become a porn star. Strange story. 1994, that was. Anyway, thank you so much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. Thank you for your company, and I look forward to another session of the court next week. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I wish you a good week, and thank you for viewing. Bye for now.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.